Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Advance It on Creating Accessible Documents. My name is Marie Murley, Senior Manager of Student Support Services, and with me I have
Liz Callan, Manager of Instructional Services for Elementary.
I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're going to go over some high-level, important things on how to create accessible documents. So first of all, you may ask, how did the buzz about accessibility at Lincoln Learning Solutions start? Well, if you haven't been watching our Bridging the Gap videos or reading our quarterly newsletters or checking out our social media, you may not know this, so I will give you a little bit of how it started. Almost a year ago, I was part of the accreditation team. Accreditation is something that you have to get by some states to sell your curriculum in those states. So one of the checklists for the accreditation for one of the states was all about accessibility. So with my special ed masters, I was kind of handed this checklist and said, hey, can you take a look at this? I started looking through it, and some things were foreign to me. I'd never heard of them, and things I noticed we did not have. So I started doing research about accessibility in online education, and I became a little bit more knowledgeable. As I was doing my research, I found this awesome conference, the Knowability Conference, that was going to be happening in Austin, Texas, and it sounded like an amazing chance for me to go and learn more about accessibility. I was able to drag along Mike and Kathy Saramonera, and at this conference we learned a lot. We had no clue what A11Y meant, which we quickly learned meant accessibility. We had no clue what WCAG was, which I'll tell you later on. And so when we came back from the conference, we shared our experience, we shared everything we learned, and we made a promise to ourselves that we were not going to let accessibility be something that we're excited about and then it eventually dies off. So as you've seen, there's been some different social media posts. We held a lunch and learn about accessibility in the workplace, because our accessibility focus is not just on the curriculum and the products we develop, but also on the workplace. And we want to make sure that we're, able to hire all people and that our curriculum can be seen and taken advantage of and be accessible for all students, parents, and clients.
Maria, I have a question. What does that have to mean accessibility mean for teachers?
Well, the teachers want to make sure that when they're creating documents or writing emails, that they're making sure they're accessible, because they don't always know who's on the other end receiving these documents or reading their emails.
And why is that important? Why do we have that responsibility?
Well, Liz, we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about some of the legal cases. So, we're going to go over the laws at a very high level. Then we're going to talk about reasons for compliance. So we'll answer your question then, Liz. We're going to go over the accessible document guidelines. We're going to demo how to make your documents accessible. Going to give you some different tools to check accessibility, and then we'll have time at the end for questions. So please write down all questions, because at the end you may have had your questions answered and not need to ask them. So first of all, you may remember learning about Section 504 and 508 back in your college days. Section 508 was part of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This was to allow individuals with disabilities the same opportunities. Section 504 makes it unlawful for individuals to be excluded from participation or to be denied benefits from anyone receiving federal financial assistance. But Section 504 also guarantees equal access. So between the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Section 504, it requires schools to make everything accessible to students with a disability, such as web pages, online resources, electronic technology, and anything else the school may be using. You may be asking, well, who enforces Section 504? The Office of Civil Rights will do their own checks of different places, but they'll also join up with students that are having difficulty with accessibility or parents, and they will file lawsuits. So they're kind of the ones that kind of oversee to make sure that all students have equal access. Some of the common findings are lack of alt text, documents not posted in accessible format, lack of captions, improperly structured data tables, improperly formatted and labeled form fields, improper contrast, and frames not titled with text. You may be saying to yourself, I have no clue what most of that means. No worries, I'm not going to go over it in detail now because we'll talk about most of it later on. So how do you know what's required to make your documents or your websites accessible? There's the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as WCAG. So this was developed through the W3C. So this is a very, very large website with lots of information that goes right over my head about what is required. So today, when we go over some of the guidelines, it's basically, in our layman's terms, what you need to do. There's 3 different levels, A, AA, AAA. Most companies want to make sure that they're at least AA or AAA to make sure that they're following the rule or the guidelines and that they're accessible. So why is this important to us? Recently, I have been taking an digital online accessibility certification. So during this, we talked about some different legal cases. You can see that I've hyperlinked them here, so when we send out the PowerPoint, you can feel free to read them more in depth. They are very interesting and very good points. The first one, Noelle Nightingale versus Seattle Public Schools. She was a mom, and from 2005 until 2012, she was able to use the Seattle Public Schools website. But in 2012, changes were made, and it was no longer compatible, and neither was the math software that the school district was using. So she had filed a lawsuit because she couldn't help her kids anymore. She couldn't access any of the information on the school's website. Seattle Public Schools did agree to, update and make sure everything was accessible. Dudley versus Miami University. Aaliyah Dudley, she required speech-to-text software and Braille alternatives to access course materials. However, the university did not adequately accommodate her needs. Miami was ordered to make their website, their course materials, textbooks, and LMSs all accessible to all students. And finally, the one about South Carolina charter schools. The U.S. Department of Ed and OCR initiated this review. They reviewed 7 different virtual schools within the district, and they took a look at the accessibility of the school's websites, online learning environments, and external websites. They found that these websites were not accessible. The district did agree to fix them. One of the schools was operated by K-12, and they found that a lot of the issues that I spoke about on our previous slide, was also found within the K-12. So that kind of, really hits home on why we need to make sure that we are a vendor that provides accessible materials and that anything we're using from outside of our company is also accessible. So, accessible document guidelines. These are some of the most important ones. We're going to take a look at text styles, contrast, heading styles, list styles, alternative text, added context, tables, the accessibility checker, links, reading order, and HTML. For a little bit more of an explanation about each of these, I have provided the quick tips hyperlink in the bottom right-hand corner. So again, we will be sending this PowerPoint out, and you can take a look at these more in depth. So first, we're going to take a look at the text. I know that when you're creating documents, such as your welcome letter or anything else, you really like to make it look really fancy and make it really cool and exciting. However, a lot of times, the simpler the better. You want to avoid decorative fonts like the first 2 boxes. These can be very difficult for students to read. The last box is the sans serif fonts. These are much easier for students to read. Also, when you are trying to emphasize something, make sure that you're not emphasizing it just using color, because some students are colorblind or have difficulty seeing color. So you want to also make sure that you maybe underline, bold, or do something to make sure that the students know that that is important information. Next, we're going to take a look at a color contraster. So I'm going to switch out of the PowerPoint now and go over to the internet. I'm going to pull up our company's website. And as you can see, this color contraster is the WCAG color contrast checker. This is something that I added in. Liz, what is it? Plugin, extension? What's it called?
I believe it's called an extension.
Okay, so I downloaded this. So now anytime I'm on a website and I want to check the color contrast, I can just simply click this and it's going to pop up a box on the left-hand side. So you can see the X's mean that the contrast is not good. We're also looking at being level AA conformant. You could also switch it to AAA if you wanted. So when you click on this, it shows that this line right here has very poor color contrast. So this is something that would be important, Liz, because say you are directing a student to use an outside website, you want to make sure that outside website is accessible for your students, or they may have trouble completing assignments or learning the information you're asking them to learn from that website.
I am really glad you called that out because that was a question that I had, because I was thinking, I'm not a web designer, so why do I need to know this?
Exactly, Liz. All right, so next, we're going to take a look at heading styles. So I'm going to open up this document in Word that I have pulled from one of our classes. I'll tell you right now, I'm not a chemistry major, so a lot of this doesn't make sense. Growing up, I always just highlighted, bolded, underlined, made things bigger to show that it was the title. I recently learned that's not the right thing to do, because when a person using a screen comes across that, sometimes they want to be able to skim a document. And so they need to know what the title is or what the different headings are so they can quickly skim through the document. So this style toolbar up here is what that's for. I had no clue what that was for.
Me either.
So I'm going to highlight this because this is the title. So Microsoft Word, you would want to make this the heading 1 style. Not really fond of the size or the look of it. So if I want to right click on heading 1, I can modify what it looks like. So I could change the font to Arial, let's say. I could change the size of it. I could change the bold, italic, underline. So that means anytime heading 1 is selected in this document, it's going to be the same. So there, we changed it. Liz, tutorial video. Should I make that a heading 1 or leave it alone, or a heading 2? What should I do?
Well, it is important information, but it's not the title of your document. So I would say that you should probably make that a heading 2.
Awesome. How about balancing equation simulation?
Again, it's not the title, but it is still important, so you want to call it out and make that a heading 2.
Awesome. Now, Liz, I know we use Google Docs a lot in our courses. Can you do these things in Google Docs?
Yes, would you like me to show you?
Oh, awesome. I would love you to show me.
All right, so to help give you a demonstration on how to do this, I started creating a reference for students and parents or teachers using our kindergarten curriculum. A lot of times I get the questions asked, where do I find lessons on letters or sight words? So I'm doing this excuse me, so they can go directly to this list and find which lesson to go to. Now, when a screen reader comes in and again scans through the document, they want to make sure that I call out the most important details, such as the title, the topic headings, and the way to do that is like Marie showed us in Microsoft Word, is to make it a heading, style, or a title. And the way to do this here is either through Format, Paragraph Styles, and then you can choose the correct heading, style, or title. Another way you could do this is through the menu bar right here. So I'm going to highlight and make that the title of my document. And that's how you do heading styles in Google Docs. Marie, take us through how you do list styles.
Okay, Liz. So again, growing up, I always just typed #1, period, and started my list, or dash and started my list. And I even was doing that up until a couple of months ago. But that makes it really difficult for a screen reader because it doesn't know that it's a list. So here you see I type number 1, number 2, period, and started my sentences. This wouldn't be readable by a screen reader or make very much sense. So I'm going to highlight it, go up here to where we could choose bullet points or numbers or even, other options. So I want to keep it numbers, so I'm just going to select the numbering. Look at it, it looks much nicer, and a screen reader will be able to indicate that it is a list. Is this something Google Docs allows you to do?
Yes, it can. Let's take a look.
Cool.
All right, so currently I have this information in this table, but let's say I wanted to do a bulleted list. Go through and type what you want to be listed. Okay, and lesson 10 and 11, that should be sufficient. All right, now there's 2 ways you can find it. Again, you want to highlight the things that you want to be listed, go up to format, bullets and numbering, and go through your options there. Or you can highlight and choose it directly from this menu bar. There's your numbered list, and there's your bulleted list. Another thing I want to call out is especially if you're an elementary teacher, you kind of tend towards making things pretty fun and engaging. We want to try and make accessible documents clean and presentable so that there's nothing that's distracting or not able to see very well for somebody that has low vision, a visual impairment, or trouble seeing color contrast. So that's how you do list styles in Microsoft Word and Google Docs. Marie, there's been a lot of talk about alternative text. What is that, and how do we put that in our documents?
Did you know that our company just got done with a huge alternative text project? We wrote text for over 80,000 images.
80,000 images.
Yeah.
What a massive project, and I bet it feels good to be done.
Yes, it is. So I will tell you that alternative text, I have a whole other presentation on how to write good alternative text. If you're interested, I can send it out to you. Or I also have some excellent links on how to learn to write a good alternative text, because you want to make it short, sweet, and simple. So I have this image up here. Again, I'm not a chemistry major, so we're going to do our best to add alternative text. So we're going to right-click. Oh, and why is alternative text popular or very important, Liz? You forgot to ask. You need alternative text because when a screen reader comes to that image, it doesn't know what to tell the person the image looks like unless you write alt text. So we right-click, we go to Edit Alt Text, and over here in Microsoft Word comes up a little alt text place to write. So being I don't know what this really is, I'm going to click Generate a Description for me. A red, white, and blue cake. I mean, I'm no chemist, but I know that is not a red, white, blue cake.
No,
is it?
No, it's not. And that would not be a very helpful description.
Yeah, and it says description automatically generated with low confidence. That's clearly true.
Yes, clearly.
Now, if you're placing an image that necessarily isn't super important or it's something decorative, you can mark it as decorative and the screen reader can jump over it. But we've always been taught that if you're putting an image into your lesson, there better be a reason it's there.
So a lot of times, whenever we have them in our lesson, there's text that indicates that there's something important coming. So see this picture below or see this table below. And then below, the screen reader is going to either read the alt text or skipped over it. So we want to make sure that the alt text clearly explains what is below.
So being I don't know what this is, I'm going to just put description here. But you would technically want to describe what it is. So don't follow what I wrote here. But when the screen reader came to that image right now, it would read description here, which is terrible alt text. Liz, let me guess. You can do this in Google Docs.
Absolutely right. Let's take a look. Okay, again, taking a look at this, since this is English language arts, I'm going to put in an image of a book. It's going to be decorative, but this is just for our example so that you can see how to do it. So first, I'm going to insert an image. I'm going to take one from the web and just select a book, insert. All right, so there's the image. To add the alt text, you want to select the image, right click, do alt text, and this window is prompting us to create a title. It's a little bit different than what you will see or experience in Microsoft Word. So basically, keeping it short, sweet, and simple, this is just a book. So I'm going to title the image book and then give a description. Book, open on tabletop. Okay, you don't have to go into too much detail. Again, concrete explanation, short, sweet, and to the point. And then, as you can see here, when I hover over it, it gives the title of what the image is, and the screen reader, when it will go through, it'll say book, open on tabletop.
Awesome, Liz.
So that's alternative text for Microsoft Word and Google Docs. Marie, next up is tables, our favorite.
I hate tables. So we're just going to give you one good pointer on tables, and then if you need the in-depth information, I can give you some good websites. So when a screen reader comes across a table, it needs to know what the headers are so it can tell the person with the screen reader what's in the headings and tell them that it's a heading. So if you highlight, right-click, go down to table properties, you want to make sure that the repeat as header row at the top of each page is selected and uncheck the allow row to break across pages. Liz, Google Docs, is it a thing?
Yep, you betcha. You can do the same thing in Google Docs. And in this case, we don't have the option to go through table properties. In this case, you want to call out the header row because the screen reader will come through and it will read left to right. So we want it to read left to right as the important information format. Bear with me, highlight, and we want to call out that this is, the row is at heading 1, so it's a tag on the page telling the screen reader there's important information. Then the next step that the screen reader will go is first left to right and then top to bottom. So then this is also the second amount of important information. You want to highlight that and make the up and down column a header 2. Again, short, sweet, simple headings and also information in tables. You want to make sure that you're not merging cells because that makes it difficult for screen readers. And also, we want to stay away from, if those of you that were in curriculum development, we used a lot of charts and tables to kind of lay out text and information. We want to stay away from that because it's not applicable to screen readers. We want to make sure that you just use tables for data and presentation of information.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. All right, next we're going to talk about links. So here you can see, here's this long link. So when a screen reader gets to this, it's going to read HTTPS blah, 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 blah. That can be quite annoying, especially if you have a lot of links. So what we want to do is highlight this, copy it, and then we want to make the word virtual simulation the link. So we highlight it, right click, go to link, we paste it down, we paste it down there and hit OK. Now we can delete this link, and when the screen reader comes across the words virtual simulation, it will indicate to the screen reader, the user behind the screen reader, that this is a link, and it's going to lead them to the virtual simulation.
So Marie, why did you do it that way instead of saying in the text, click here for a virtual simulation?
Explain more, Liz.
Well, when I normally call out a link in an email or a supplemental material, I'll say click here for the link.
Because they won't know what they're clicking to, so you need to describe what the link is leading to.
Okay,
So you don't want just click here. It can be very confusing.
Thank you for that clarification. And guess what?
Google Docs can do
You
it.
can. Let's take a look. All right, so within my chart, let's say I want to add some other information and support for our students. And let's say there's maybe a student didn't have that much information or sort of wasn't quite getting the pronunciation of letter T from our audio files. So I want to include either an additional video or audio file within this chart. And I'm going to call that out with a link. So in order to do that, first I want to go and find my link. And I want to find pronunciation of the letter T. There's my short little video that I can attach. I'm going to grab that link, copy it, go back to my supplemental material, highlight the letter T, link, and as you can see, it's prompting me to type the text that I want to appear, attach the link right there, and click apply. So now when the screen reader reads across lesson 18 and 19, letter T, it's also going to call out that there is a link there.
Awesome, Liz. Thanks. So a lot of the things I've shown you in Microsoft Word, you can also do in PowerPoint. The next thing I'm going to show you is reading order. So we're going to go back to this PowerPoint. Let's take a look at this page. So when a screen reader is reading this slide, it needs to be told which box to read first, because you got 1, 2, 3, and boxes. It doesn't know what to read. So to tell it the reading order, you're going to go up here to Arrange and click. Go down to Selection pane, and over here it will bring up the order. So you can see right now it is starting with slide number placeholder right here. I don't want that visible or read to the people, so I'm going to turn that off. So then first it's going to read the common findings. Next it's going to read this information.
That order does not make sense. How do you make it make sense?
So we want them to know that it's about the Office of Civil Rights. So we're going to click and hold title and move it up to the top. Next, I want the OCR read, so I'm going to click and drag it up. Same with content placeholder, click and drag it up. So this way, when the screen reader comes across the slide, it can read everything in the correct order.
That was pretty easy.
It is. It is. One thing I want to mention that we haven't brought up is PDFs, Liz, because when PDFs are very difficult to make accessible, and you definitely have to do the reading order on those. But I mean, Kathy, she attended a training at the Knowbility Conference on making PDFs accessible. She only lasted 48 hours. So we'll save PDFs for a whole nother training, because when it comes to reading order for PDFs, it's very important. Now, you were talking something about Microsoft Outlook and like making sure that your emails are accessible. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure thing. So, we upgraded to Microsoft Office 365. And the good thing is you've already been making your email is accessible and you didn't even know it. And I'm going to show you why. So whenever you do a new email, do you see this right up here?
I do.
Did you ever notice think about, what does that mean and why is it there?
Not really.
This is so emails that you type right here in the body are accessible to screen readers, to contrast checkers, to anything that somebody on the other end would need to support them to read your message.
Cool.
Now, in order to find where that setting is, you go up to File, Options, and we're already in the Mail section. When you see here, compose messages in this format, HTML is already selected because in Office 365, that is the format that is the
Automatically selected.
automatic.
There's a word for it, Liz. I can't think of it.
Neither can I right now. So anyway,
Default.
the default setting, that's it. My goodness. Okay, I need some more coffee. So you click OK. Now it's the HTML setting. Now, what if you are replying to an email? You want to click Reply, pop it out, go to Format Text, and right there, as you can see, it's already the default setting, but it doesn't hurt to check and make sure. You also see right up there too. You also want to make sure that this is the case because in general, when you reply to somebody within our company, it's probably going to be the default setting, but you want to make sure if you're replying to somebody outside of our company that it's on HTML.
Awesome, Liz.
Now, Marie.
Yes.
We went over a lot of stuff.
We have.
And it's going to be hard to remember. Is there something like a tool that we can use to make sure as like a backup to make sure that we followed all of these styles?
Good thing you asked, because there is, Liz. Microsoft Office has really worked hard to make sure that everything can be accessible. So they know that it is a lot of information. So they created what's called the accessibility checker. You can find this in PowerPoint, Outlook, Word. I'm sure it's in Excel too. So up here, if you see review, you click on that, you have the check accessibility. You click on it, and it's going to open a little box over here. You'll see we have one error. What's missing alternative text? You click on it, you click on the picture, and it's showing it's our company logo. So this is something that you could then add a description, you could learn more about it, give you information on why to fix it and how to fix it. So this is definitely a tool I would suggest everyone using when creating any type of document. But does Google Docs really have anything like this?
It does, but it's in a little bit of a different format. So in Google Docs, it's something that you're going to have to select as an extension or an add-on.
Is this that bird you were telling me about?
Yes, it is. It has a very interesting name, and it's called Grackle Docs. And it is the accessibility checker that is compatible to Google Suites. So I want to check my accessibility of this Google Docs. I'm going to go up to add-ons, pull it down, select Grackle Docs, and hit launch. And it's going to go through and show me what is currently accessible and what needs to be fixed. So as you can see here, the document title is required, so I don't have that there. I have all of these things that are good, and oh, I thought I had that table tagged. Well, I can click on that and then correct it. Then I can select recheck, and it could check it again to make sure everything is ready to go.
Awesome, Liz. Thanks for that. So these last few slides that we have in our presentation are all different tools that you could use. So they're in the presentation as links, but I'm just going to pull them up to take a look at. So the first one is the Wave Accessibility Evaluation Tool. This, let me make a big statement, this is not the same as the Wave program that Lincoln Learning Solutions just developed. The Wave that we developed is our content management system. This Wave tool is a totally different thing. This checks the accessibility of a website. And again, you may want to do, or you not may want to, you need to do this if you're sending your student to use an outside source to make sure it's accessible. So we're going to check our Works website again. So you copy and paste the website and you place it right in here. Hit enter, and it comes up with any errors that or alerts or features that are found. So you're like, I don't know where any of these are. Click on details and it will bring you right to where you can click on the contrast errors. Again, we see our solutions, your success has a contrast error. Down here, there's contrast errors. So again, when you're checking any websites that you may be suggesting your students to use, this is a great checker to use. Next is the W3C Web Accessibility Initiative website. This has been a very important website to all of us that have been working on the accessibility team. There's tons of information. It helps you understand how people with disabilities use the web, any assistive technology they use. It helps you learn about planning and policies, testing, evaluating. Again, I can't stress enough how important this website is. It even helped us come up with our accessibility statement for the organization. Lastly, Microsoft Office has been doing some amazing things with all of their products. So today we could have used PowerPoint and had it automatically close caption what we were saying, but we didn't want it to be a distraction. We want to have the ability to edit it. However, Collaborate also has the option to do live captioning. However, you have to have a manual captioner, and I don't think anyone can keep up with as fast as I talk. So this is another website that I definitely suggest checking out, because it talks about a lot of different tools for the different disabilities that I didn't even know we have and have the ability to use. So we'll be sending out, all of these links in the PowerPoint. And now at this time, we would like to ask if anyone has questions. But first, thank you for joining us today. And please let us know what your questions are.
And then if you think of something later, is there what we can send in questions?
Yes, we have our own email address. It's accessibility@lincolnlearningsolutions.org. And any email sent there will come to myself and Kathy Saramonera.
So this is important if you have any students or family or clients that come with you and say, I'm having trouble accessing the website or some of the content. You want to make sure that you give them this email address so that they can get their issue taken a look at and investigated and help get them support.
Awesome. Thanks again, everyone.